Hello, everybody. This is Rock My Bean. Today, we are going to having a very special, amazing drummer. His name is Buddy Rich, and I hope you're having an amazing day. It's an amazing day today, and today we are having a very, very good performance of Buddy Rich. He called himself as an amazing drummer ever.
Well, he didn't call himself that.
Yeah.
He was called that by others.
He was called that by others.
Yeah. Buddy Rich, we did a show with Animal, remember?
Yes.
From the Muppet Show.
Yes.
And a drum off with Animal and Buddy Rich. That was done in the early mid-'70s.
Yes.
So we did that months and months ago. But it was about Animal. It wasn't about Buddy Rich.
Yes.
And, he has been called the greatest. The drummer for Queen, Roger Taylor, said he was the greatest drummer that ever breathed.
Yeah.
That's how great a lot of drummers thought about Buddy Rich as a drummer.
Yeah.
And he was. I think he was probably, if not the greatest, he was darn close. Probably in the top 5 drummers or 10 drummers. Some people put him in the top 10, some in the top 5 of all time. And I have to agree. When you watch this guy play, it is stunning. He was very precise and very fast and precise. And those sound like two things that are opposite of each other. But he pulled it off. He was able to do it very, very well.
Yes.
Now, we've just done Gene Krupa a while back, and he thought Buddy Rich was the greatest drummer, too. So this isn't just the opinion of me or rock drummers in my generation, but Gene Krupa, who was a contemporary of Buddy Rich, he thought he was a great drummer.
Yes.
Now, Buddy Rich... Let's see. Buddy Rich was born Bernard Rich to actors Robert and Bess Rich in 1917. And by 1921, he was a seasoned solo performer with his vaudeville act called Traps the Drum Wonder. And with his natural sense of rhythm, Rich performed regularly on Broadway at the age of 4. And at the peak of his early career, he was the second highest paid child entertainer in the world. He started learning drums at 2 years old. That's how old he was when he started learning drums.
That boy.
There are some geniuses that can do that.
Yeah.
But not too many.
Just like every Moloch.
Possibly, yes.
Yeah.
But throughout the 60s and 70s, Rich toured with his own band. He was big in the 30s and the 40s with swing music and the big band scene. And he appeared in Hollywood films like Symphony of Swing, Ship Ahoy, and How's About It.
Yeah.
In the 60s and 70s, he toured with his own bands and opened 2 nightclubs. And both clubs were regularly filled to capacity by fans of him. He was also known for his caustic humor. He was a favorite on several television talk shows like The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, The Mike Douglas Show, Dick Cavett Show, Merv Griffin. These are shows that were big in the 60s and 70s. And during his appearances, audiences were entertained by his constant sparring with the hosts and slights of various pop singers. So he was very critical of other musicians. He didn't like rock music, but whenever a rock drummer would come up to him, he'd be very nice to him and everything else, but he didn't like rock music. But he really hated country western music. He thought it was useless.
Yeah.
So he didn't like that. And he had a temper. He was known for having a bad temper and yelling at his musicians and being very, very tough. In fact, one musician was so mad at him, he said, "I joined a band, not the Marines." So he was a very, very tough band leader.
Yeah.
And he didn't like band leaders, which is interesting. He didn't like band leaders, but he was a band leader. Anyway, so he had a difficult disposition, but he was a very brilliant musician, a great drummer. He toured around the world, performing for millions of fans and several world leaders like the King of Thailand, King Hussein of Jordan, the Queen of England, and Presidents Roosevelt, Kennedy, and Reagan. Now, on April 2nd, 1987, Rich died of a heart failure following surgery for a malignant brain tumor. Longtime friend Frank Sinatra spoke a touching eulogy at his funeral.
Yeah.
And today, Buddy Rich is remembered as one of history's greatest musicians. And according to jazz legend Gene Krupa, Rich was the greatest drummer ever to have drawn breath. So that Gene Krupa said that. Roger Taylor said something similar. All right, so we've got a treat because this is Buddy Rich, not at the height of his career, not when he was young. This is just before, not long before he died. He was in his 60s when, I'm not sure the exact year, but he was in his 60s, in 1980s, when he did this video. He did this drum solo. And it's called the Impossible Drum Solo because it is stunning what this guy did as a drummer at his age, wearing a tuxedo and playing is absolutely stunning. And you can see after he's done.
Is he playing with double bass?
No, one bass drum.
One bass drum?
One bass drum, yes. In fact, I forgot who the drummer was. There was a drummer, a rock drummer. Oh, it was Phil Collins.
Phil Collins.
Phil Collins was playing double bass till he saw Buddy Rich play with a single bass. He says, that's it. I'm just ditching my double bass. I'm going with a single bass.
Yeah.
He was so impressed with how Buddy Rich played a single bass. So,
yeah,
we're going to watch this live performance. And I'm not sure the year. I think it's sometime in the 1980s. I think the middle or to late middle 1980s, not long before he died. Because at the end of this show, you can see he's out of breath. He's exhausted, and his wife said at the end of the show he actually had suffered a heart attack while he was playing.
Yeah.
But he finished the solo, and that's incredible.
Probably his husband really loved
him. His wife.
His wife really loved him.
She did, and she said that at the end of this show, you can see he's having a hard time. He actually suffered a small heart attack while he was finishing the solo.
Yeah.
So let's watch Buddy Rich in the Impossible Drum Solo. An insane solo performed at the Concert of the Americas sometime in the mid-1980s. So here we go right now.
Buddy Rich.
Buddy Rich.
He's keeping the traditional grip.
Yes, he played with the grip.
Do you play that?
Not like him.
It's called the Impossible Solo.
Yes, he does. Very crisp and precise.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, he can even with the one hand. Oh my God, how is he doing that? He's even... Wow! Oh my gosh. Never gets tired, huh? Yeah. And accents with words.
couple years older than me.
Yeah.
Anyway, so his wife said he actually suffered a heart attack a little bit while he was doing that.
Yeah.
And he played right through it and he finished it. Isn't that incredible?
What's THX?
That says thank. That means that's shorthand for thanks.
Oh, okay.
Wow, so what do you think, Mark?
It was really good. I really liked it. He was... That was a very impossible drum solo doing the I couldn't even do that by myself.
I mean, his rolls were so crisp.
Yeah.
I heard he was not sloppy.
Yeah.
Every beat was there. Every stick hit, you could hear it differentiated.
Yeah.
And the speed he was going, I mean, remarkable. This guy was absolutely a remarkable drummer. Absolutely remarkable.
Yeah.
Probably, I say he's the best drummer ever. There's a lot. There's a few other great drummers. Hate to kick them off, but if I look at drummers as how much, not only that they did when they were drumming, but how much they contributed to the drummers that came after them.
Yeah.
And the influence they had. I think that Buddy Rich definitely was the greatest drummer in that regard. Not just a great drummer, but his drumming inspired so many other drummers after him, rock drummers like Neil Peart and others. Because Neil Peart actually, in the 1990s, him and Steve Smith did a Burning for Buddy, where they got a bunch of jazz drummers and him and Steve Smith from Journey, and they each played a Buddy Rich song, a drum part, on a recording. You can get that recording. And it was honoring Buddy Rich, because at the time, Neil Peart was retaking lessons for the second time from a famous swing jazz drummer in New York City, and learning how to play traditional grip. So Neil totally changed his drum set. He removed all his drums around to be more like a jazz set, maintaining some of the stuff he had before. And for the rest of his career, for the next 20 years, that's how he played drums.
Yeah.
This new way, learning how to play like Buddy Rich did. And so he was so enamored with Buddy Rich's drumming that he was a part of this Burning for Buddy recording they did. Excuse me. So anyway, so the influence Buddy had on other drummers was so big and widespread that I think he deserves the greatest drummer of all time, just because for those two things, his drumming and his influence.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody else comes close in those two places.
Yeah.
And like I said, when I was learning drums in the early 70s, I was learning to play swing music and jazz music. I wasn't allowed to learn rock and roll. I wasn't allowed till I got that down. And when I got that down, then I could play some Beatles songs or whatever was around then, which I end up doing. But I always remembered my lessons of playing jazz and swing. And I love playing that music. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But Buddy Rich was one of the drummers that I was listening to when I was playing, because he was such a good drummer. Anyway, so that's all we have for this show. We had to do Buddy Rich. He's the one guy we hadn't done, and I think the greatest drummer we hadn't done. So we had to get him done. We had to do him, and I can't believe we forgot to do Buddy Rich.
Yeah.
So how can we do that? So we got it. We did him, and I'm honored to show this guy to a new generation that may not have seen this man perform.
Yeah.
He was an incredible, incredible talent and an inspiration for drummers for generations.
Yes.
Well, thank you for joining us for Rock My Bean.
And have a great day, and I hope you stay tuned with us, and we're going to see you next second.
We'll see you again next time. Keep rocking on.
Keep rocking on.